Republicans and hardline conservatives alike. Take Senator Tom Tillis. Now, he's upset that Trump's mega bill could cut Medicaid coverage for nearly 12 million Americans, even though the president said he wasn't going to touch Medicaid.
What do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there anymore yet? The effect of this bill is to break a promise.
Well, Trump threatened a primary against Tillis for going against the bill, but Tillis responded with what you might call, well, the ultimate mic drop, announcing he won't seek re-election next year. So perhaps that threat might fall on his deaf ears. Now, on the other end of the GOP, you've got senators like Rand Paul. Now, he says the bill doesn't have enough deep cuts to reduce the deficit.
But we know next year this bill will grow the deficit by $270 billion. In addition, the bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. What does that mean? That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing years will add trillions more. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
And you can throw in Elon Musk into that same camp. The one-time Trump ally and, of course, Doge leader says anyone who backs the bill is part of the Porky Pig Party. He's threatening primaries against anyone who supports it. Trump can only afford to lose 3 Republican votes in the Senate, as you know, and even if the bill passes that chamber, the House will still have to vote on the changes. Republican margins there, well, they aren't any better. So needless to say, the fallout from this bill could have huge consequences for the midterms, and it could determine who controls Congress next year. Democrats, well, they see an opening.
We're going to make sure that everybody hears about every Republican who voted to take away health care from millions of Americans so that billionaires could get tax handouts, and they voted to run up the national deficit by another $3.5 trillion. You better believe by November 2026, we're going to make sure everybody in America's heard about that.
Let's start with CNN correspondent Lauren Fox, who's been live on Capitol Hill. Lauren, as you know, 14 hours down. So at this 11th hour, literally, is the Senate anywhere close to passing Trump's bill?
You know, they still have a number of amendments that we know that they are planning on voting on in the next several hours. And I would just let you know that, you know, there are still a flurry of meetings happening behind the scenes to try to shore up the support that John Thune, the majority leader, is going to need to get this bill across the finish line. You know, Democrats have been arguing all day that as this went on, they noticed the votes were getting slower and slower and slower. And in part, that was, in their view, a symptom of the fact that Republicans were still trying to solve some key issues that they have been working on over the course of the last several weeks. One of those issues is the cuts to Medicaid. There are a number of conservatives who want to make sure that this bill cuts even more dramatically into that program. Specifically, Senator Rick Scott, a Republican from Florida, has an amendment that he has been working to try to get support on that would basically get rid of the 90-10 match for the Medicaid expansion population in the future. That was obviously a key incentive, a reason that states decided to expand Medicaid in their states. And that is something that he believes needs to be cut. Meanwhile, you have some moderate Republicans like Senator Susan Collins and Senator Lisa Murkowski who already think that what is in the bill has done too much to cut into that important program for millions of Americans across the country. So that is the dynamic that John Thune is dealing with tonight. As you can see, if you give one side what they want, you start to lose votes on the other side, and that is the challenge for leadership. It has been for the last several weeks, but this is all obviously coming to a head in these final hours before this vote.
Quite the seesaw. And of course, Republicans, though, we're hearing, well, they're insisting, Lauren, that this legislation will not increase the deficit. I know it's late in the evening and it's 14 hours in, but is this mathing?
Well, Republicans are using a lot of different tactics to try to add these numbers together. One of them is they are arguing that extending current tax policy, some of these tax cuts from the 2017 tax cuts bill, that actually does not add to the deficit because it's just current law. Now, Republicans and Democrats got into a big fight over this on the Senate floor just a few hours ago when this debate kicked off. But that is something that they are continuing to argue. Meanwhile, they have people on their own side, including Senator Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, that we talked about, Senator Mike Lee of Utah, who have all expressed concerns that this bill adds too much to the deficit. All you have to do is go back to Saturday night. Senator Rand Paul, a conservative from the state of Kentucky, voted against advancing this bill because it included a massive increase in the country's borrowing limit, an increase in the debt ceiling of $5 trillion. So there are conservatives on their own side who think that this bill is not doing enough to curb future spending.
Lauren Fox, thank you so much for your reporting. As always, with me now,